I'm doing now. It'll bring you to this landing page, and this landing page will give you access to all of the products you potentially own. As you can see right here in the top left-hand corner, we have HCSS credentials. As you can see, I have 62 active users, 6 subscription groups, and it's been 1 day since I last changed my password, so I'm good on that. If it says something like 365 days since you changed your password, you might want to consider changing that. Below, under the Discover More section, you have Heavy Job, HCSS e-logs. It gives you the ability to look at some of our new products, get a feel for it, particularly if it is applicable to your business. Moving on, we're going to go straight into credentials just by hitting the open button. And this, as I am logged in as a customer admin, takes you right to your users section. So right off the bat, we take you as a customer admin directly into the most applicable section of our website. For the sake of this, what we're going to first do is we're going to go through creating a new user. So to create a new user, you go up to the Add New button here on the top left-hand corner, click, and you're going to be presented with the user profile page. And you can see we have user ID, first name, last name, email. A big important thing about user ID, it has to be unique across all companies. I've been asked this quite a few times before by customers, why do we do that? The best way to think about it is if you had 2 John Smiths and they both happen to guess the same password or use the password, our system would have no way of differentiating between the two. So we have that locked down. So if there's a John Smith out there and you want to create a John Smith, you have to create John Smith 1 or JS1 if you're feeling, different. So for this user ID, we're going to go with Heavy Bob, because I like the rhyme. Now, when you're creating the user ID, you do have to have a first and last name. We do require that. So this guy's name is Heavy Bob. Unfortunately, his mother didn't like him. And for the email, you have to have the email. When you set the email up, if you're an IT person and you want to set it up for a user, make it your own email, you can come in and change that later. Whatever email you put here is where your password will be sent. So for the sake of this user, we're going to use my email, shaythielen@hcss.com. Phone number is optional. It's a good thing to have if you're wanting to keep track of phone numbers for your foreman or your supervisors, but not necessary, as well as contact method. You can choose between contact method of email or phone. I highly suggest email because a phone call can be missed. Email, a little harder to miss that one. It'll go to spam maybe if you're not careful. Now on to the next big one, and let me know if I'm going too fast. Role. We have 2 types of role, the customer user and the customer admin. The best way to think of the two, the customer admin, like myself, has access to everything within this company on credentials. It allows you to create users, it allows you to edit users, it allows you to create subscription groups, which we will go into further later. It allows you to look at reporting, look at billing, basically full gamut of accessibility. Customer user has none of that. So for the best way to think of a customer user, that's the guy that you want to set as your foreman. He's only out in the field. He's logging into our field mobile application. He doesn't need to see this website. He doesn't need to mess with any of his information. So yes, foreman, customer user, manager office users that need to manage this, customer admin. So for Heavy Bob's sake, we're making him a customer user. His subscription group, which again we will go into further in this, I'm going to make him a foreman. And you can make multiple subscription groups, allows you to give customization to what kind of app access you have. But again, we'll go into that later. Business unit. This is only important if you are an enterprise user. And I just saw a question pop up, is the user ID case sensitive? It is not. So if you want to do capitalization, not capitalization, it's completely fine. Home business unit. So if you are an enterprise user, this is where you would go to set that business unit. Why is that important? Because it dictates what jobs this user will have access to. Also dictates what setups he'll see. So if you have somebody in, let's say, our webinar business unit who is off in California, but you accidentally set him to, let's say, the Shelley business unit listed here, and they happen to be in Arizona, you're going to see Arizona jobs, Arizona employees, Arizona equipment. it can be a bit of a mess. So for the sake of this webinar, we're going to be using the webinar home business unit, and then on to the next one. This is also the employee code is also very important when setting up a user. Heavy Job needs that to know basically the identity of your foreman. So when you're going through employee codes, as you can see here, you want to make sure to match that employee code that comes from Heavy Job Manager with this foreman user to guarantee that when he submits his time cards, diaries, and photos, and you pull them into the Heavy Job Manager system, that they'll be properly assigned to the right foreman code. So for this sake, we're going to do the webinar. There he is, webinar admin. And as you can see, I accidentally already assigned this to myself. So the webinar admin, this is a nice little warning screen that'll come up. If you accidentally assign an employee code that's already been assigned to another user, it'll give you a warning message. So we will pick a different one. Let's go with Benoit Brunet, because that is a great name. Okay, so we have our employee code set, we've got our business unit set, we've got our subscription group set, we have everything done except the last, which is job access. Now you have four options with job access. All jobs, which basically gives you access to, or gives your foreman access to every active job on your list that has been built out to our server. Select jobs, right down here, which allows you to go in and manually pick which jobs that you assign to them. Key note here, if you do select jobs, or the select jobs option, you will have to update this list manually with any new jobs that you need to assign them. So if you've assigned him jobs 1 through 11, and y'all decide to start up job 12, let's say a week from now, you will have to come in here, edit this user, go to that that jobs button right over here and select job 12. If you have a lot of users, it can be a bit of a pain. A lot of our customers tend to use the all jobs section. It's a little bit easier. The next one you have, jobs where employee code is active. This one is designed to kind of combat the issue with select jobs. If you have an employee code, let's say Heavy Bob, and he's active in jobs 1, 2, 5, 6, and 7, this option right here will give him job access to 1, 2, 5, 6, and 7. Now, let's say later on you create job 12, and he's an active foreman in that. Instead of you having to come in here and manually change that, it'll just automatically set his access to job 12 as well. This will move on from here. So, as most users, I've got Heavy Bob set up, fully ready to go. He's got all jobs access. After you're done, all you do is you hit the save button. When you do, what will come up is this screen letting you know of your new monthly charges. So the key thing to note here is the changes. So when you see that plus sign, if it says plus $25, plus $10, plus $15, that is what's being added to your current bill. So $1737.50 plus 0, because I haven't given him, I gave him a subscription group, but I did not give him any app access. This is costing you nothing. So yes, for temporary employees, you can create users without subscription groups. That way they're prepped, and all you could do is come in here, change their subscription group, and you can fire up their subscription at that time. Okay, now we're saving and creating our new user. If this Heavy Bob has not been created anywhere else, successful. So we now have Heavy Bob. So moving on, we're going to now talk about subscription groups. This is the second selectable item on the left, I guess you would say, or button on the left. When you click this, this takes you to the subscription groups section. Now, the nice thing about this is we used to have it where you had to go in, each individual user, change their subscription, change their modifications, and it was really annoying for our larger customers. So this was a good way to resolve that. What you can now do is create a group of, let's say, foremen. You can tell them what kind of access to what kind of subscriptions you want to each product, save it, and then you can assign multiple users. That way you're not having to do each individual user. You can do 12, 15 users to one group, 5 to another group, and really be able to customize who does what without having to go into each one. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a new group. And to add a group, you just go up to the top left here where it says Add Group, and click on it. And the subscription group needs to be uniquely named. We're going to call it the Webinar Subscription Group. Once you've put that in, just go ahead and click Save. And now we have our new Webinar Subscription Group. It is that easy. If you, for any reason, mistype the group name and you want to change that, we have the ability to delete the subscription group right here outright, or the option to edit up here across from the Add Group button. For now, we're going to go into the webinar group and manage the subscriptions. So we have multiple products here, and most of you are going to be dealing with Heavy Job Field mobile app, the Heavy Job Manager mobile app, Heavy Job 1. If you have any questions about each one, we also have these little informational icons to the right that give you a brief overview of what this is, including activation fee, monthly fee, and the discounted fee. So for the sake of this webinar, we're going to go through the Heavy Job Field mobile app. And as you can see, this is the kind of applet access that you can give your users when they log in, particularly your foreman. So in the area of a foreman, we're looking at diary, photos, time cards, materials, job analysis, safety. For the sake of this, we're going to select all. And this is a very quick way, if you know that you want your guys to have access to everything, you can just check everything off. Key note, we have moved the show cost option from a company-wide setting to a subscription group setting. So the show cost, the best way to think about it is in job analysis and in production analysis for your foreman, it allows them to see the dollars and cents of what's going on with your jobs. If you are not amenable to that and you prefer they only see hours, labor hours, things like that, make sure to uncheck that. That way they're not seeing things you don't want them to see. Okay, so I've modified that, and as you can see right here, it says subscribed with a little checkbox right next to it. It will not save that until I hit the save to the bottom right here. So I'm going to go ahead and save. And because I haven't assigned users yet, again, we see the monthly bill and the modifications. It's still showing 0. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and assign Heavy Bob to this subscription group. And to do that, you just go into the lower left-hand section and go to Assign Users. And that'll take you to the Assign Users page. And as you can see right here, Assign Users to a Subscription Group Webinar. I can quickly and easily add people who may be in a different subscription group. I can move them around to this one, or I can move them from the No Subscription section to this. We also, a key thing to note about credentials, we have a dynamic search function in the top right. So when you type something, it automatically starts filtering. If you hit space again and type another sentence or another word, it will filter further. So I'm going to check off Heavy Bob over here and go to Assign on the right. Perfect. And as you can see, it's now saying, hey, your monthly bill is going to go up by $12.50 because you've assigned him to the Heavy Job Field mobile application. So I hit yes. I now have a new subscription cost, which you can see here. Total company subscription cost $17.50 rather than $17.35.50. That was, or $37.50. So yeah, it's very easy, very intuitive, very straightforward. If anything's grayed out like this, it means that you've got another subscription that's already applied. So for example, because we have Heavy Job Field mobile app here, as you can see, we have already subscribed to Heavy Job Field. It grays it out so that you don't double bill yourself. Okay, so we've gone over subscription groups and we've gone over users. The next thing that we can do is I'm just going to take you through basic navigation of our website, show you some interesting features that may help you. We're going to go right down the list over here to the left and go to the reporting section. The first thing, right off the bat, the licensing summary. I am a particular fan of the licensing summary because what you can do is you can look at what product licenses you have and how many are in use. So for example, because we are HCSS, we have 999 users. But the key thing to note is we have every product represented. And you see right here you have product licenses, mobile licenses, and then number in use. So for example, Heavy Job Field, I have 999 product licenses, 999 mobile licenses, and of those, for Heavy Job Field, I have 5 in use. Same thing for Heavy Job Manager Mobile, which is 45 in use. So key thing to note, let's see here. When we say product license and we say mobile license, what we do is when you're given a product license, let's say you have 8 Heavy Job Field licenses that you purchased. We give you 8 mobile licenses as sisters. So for example, if for any reason you need to have Foreman Heavy Bob use a laptop and a mobile device, this gives you that ability. Okay, moving on. Users by product is another good way for you to be able to come in here and see what users are using, let's say, the Heavy Field mobile app discounted. You can also see this in the subscription groups, but I like this side better because it then breaks it down for you. I can see how many people I've got in my mechanic app. I can search using the dynamic search function. Very, very intuitive. Well, I like to think it's very intuitive. Okay, the other thing, this one's very important, and this is something that was asked for by a lot of large customers. It's called the Subscription Usage Report, and this is the third one down under the reports section. This gives you the ability, if you've got a lot of users out in the field and you're worried that some of them aren't using your product or using your license actively, you're trying to free up licenses. Let's say you've got 50 licenses, 50 foremen, but you need a 51st. Rather than pay for another license, you can come into the subscription usage report, run the report, and I'm going to run it for May to June, and I'm going to use transactions by users. It runs this dynamic report that allows me to see what users have used this report, how much they're costing me for the entire month. So if you've got Heavy Bob out there that we assigned back in May or April and he still hasn't used the product, well, you're wasting your money having him assigned to this product. So this gives you the ability to go in, run a customizable report, say, hey, wait, Bob's not using this, I need to pull him. That way you're saving yourself money. We have our audit trail. And I do not believe I've set this up, but we'll give you just a quick rundown on it. This one is really good if you're concerned about what users are making what changes within credentials. So if you've got 5 or 6 customer admins and somebody changed job access for this one guy and you're concerned about that, this is where you can run into or use the audit trail to find that. So if you've got particularly a customer admin that may have made a mistake, you can track that mistake, figure out really quickly what happened by being able to sort through here, and you can see like I've done here, I've added multiple users, I've created a new user, Heavy Bob, I've changed employee codes here. It gives you just a full audit of every action that's been taken within that time frame. Okay. Moving on to Heavy Job Data, which is a drop-down, we have 3 different items which a lot of our support guys and a number of our customers use very frequently, which is called event data, job data, and library data. Event data, to summarize, is a great way to be able to see what kind of transactions have been coming in. So if, for example, we're going to go to event data right now, if one of your foremen submits a time card and you're not seeing it in the manager and you want to be able to make sure that it did come in correctly or at least made it to our servers, you can come in here and actually see that. So you'll see when it was sent, and by the way, this is in GMT. That's a very key thing. So you will have to deduct or add hours based on your time zone. It tells you your business unit, tells you what kind of event type. We have time card, diary of photo, and time card approval. So right off the bat, I can see here that the support 3 user created 3 time card approvals on 6/8 and submitted them. And the transaction date is the actual date of the transaction. I know that's a little bit redundant, but what it's saying is this was for the time card of 6/7. I approved the time card or rejected the time card 6/7, and I did it on 6/8. Also tells you what job code, what username, and we even give you the XML so that you can see your own data in the raw format. Why is that important to you? Well, some IT guys use that to be able to determine if their foreman has updated to the latest version of the application. You can also use it to see if the OS that they're on is the most up-to-date. Why is being on the most up-to-date OS or operating system important? Well, for example, we had there was actually a security bug in iOS 9 Plus or 9.4 Plus that allowed a hacker to backdoor into it. So iOS immediately put out iOS 10, which had that fix. But if not for going into this, your IT guys might not have known, especially if you don't have MDM. So it's a very good and useful way of checking their data. Moving on, we have job data. Now, job data and library data, those are your setups. Those are the things coming from the manager system. And so you have a drop-down right here. If you want to be able to see what a user can see and what business unit they're in, you can actually go in here, do the drop-down for the user, go through your list, and find it. So we're going to do the webinar admin. And we want to be able to see the webinar business unit. I'm going to select my job. There it is. I have my webinar job. And so once I highlight it, I hit submit. And again, we have our dynamic search function up here. So if you have 400, 500 jobs, you can type in either the job ID, job description, and it'll filter it for you. Hit submit. And now, as you can see, I have all the cost codes, all the employees, all the equipment, and all the pay classes of the job that I sent up. So if for any reason let's say you've created, Heavy Bob was made, but now you need Heavy Bill. You create Heavy Bill in Manager. The foreman, Heavy Bob, says, hey, I'm looking for Heavy Bill to add, but I don't see him. You can come in here, go to the employees section, and actually look for him through the list. If you don't see him on the list, you can then determine that, hey, it's probably not built up yet. I may need to give it a few more moments. Or if you do see it, then you may need to tell your foreman, hey, go ahead and refresh your data, particularly your setup data. So we do have this for job data. Key thing to note here, we also have the sync date. That's more important to us here in support, but it is good for IT to use if you're trying to figure out how long something took to build out to your to our servers from your heavy job manager. So going back to our reports, another section that I find extremely valuable and that I recommend customers be able to look at is their library data. It works exactly like job data, except it's strictly for your library. So once you have your user and your business unit, just hit apply. Again, now you have your library employees, your library equipment, and your library pay classes. We don't do cost codes, obviously, because cost codes are job specific. So again, very useful tool. We give you your data in its purest form so that you can see what's going up to our Azure database. Okay. The other thing, we're actually going to skip mobile signatures because mobile signatures is now working through Heavy Job Web. Other things that you can modify are your company settings, including mobile preferences. Mobile preferences, not a lot of people know about. One of the coolest things that you can do from this is the force login. If you're worried about security and you want to make sure that your foremen aren't leaving their app open, you can check this box off, save, and whenever the app goes to sleep, or whenever they minimize the app and the tablet goes to sleep, this will force them to log back in. Not a lot of people use it, but it is a very good security tool if you need it. You can also set up password policy, which gives you the ability to dictate if you want the password to be a certain length, if you need it to have special characters or a numerical value. You can do a standard random generated 8 characters, or you can do a custom. When you do a custom password, what happens is whenever you create a new user, they get that exact same password. It's not the most secure, but when you're starting out and you're trying to get a bunch of users a simple password that they can remember, this is a good way to do it. Okay. The other thing that we do give you access to is your billing. So this is verified billing because we're sending you a bill every month. We do have to have a verified biller. So if you ever get asked from one of our support techs, you call in, hey, I need a verified billing address. This is why, because we're sending you that bill via email. Okay, and then business units, this is again strictly only for enterprise users. This is where you set up your business units so that you can have them selectable in credentials. As you can see here, we have added the webinar. When you add a new one, you have to make sure that that code right there is equal to the code in Heavy Job. So if your business unit's code is webinar, you need to match it letter for letter, number for number. The name itself is less important. We can edit it at any time, so if you feel like you accidentally wrote it wrong, just hit the edit button, and that allows you to change the information, including the location. And then once you do that, you have to associate it with the business unit right here.